Syria Behind the Lines is a must-see, gripping look at Syria's brutal civil war. The documentary filmmaker Olly Lambert took an interesting, different approach to making this PBS Frontline documentary.
Tonight on Frontline, two enemies face each other in a brutal civil war. On one side, a young rebel soldier fighting to the death to bring down the regime of President Bashar al-Assad.
My greatest joy will be to become a martyr and for Syria to be liberated.
Facing him, a career soldier determined to preserve the Assad regime.
We're all martyrs in the making to keep our country safe.
It's gripping, intense, and extremely informative of the real situation on the ground, which is always the best way to get a sense for these types of conflicts, to see things from the people who are there's perspective. Now, watching the film is obviously the best way of seeing his perspective, seeing things from what he saw from his lens there on the ground. But Lambert also did a Reddit AMA, where we can get an even better view of the situation in Syria through his answers to those questions. He thinks that a strong contender to be the next leader of Syria if and when Bashar al-Assad falls is Muaz al-Khatib, who's the leader of the National Coalition for Syrian Revolutionary and Opposition Forces, a group that has now been recognized as the official government of Syria by several other countries. Lambert also believes that this all started as a peaceful revolution against the regime, and many rebel supporters still hanker for those days when it was simply a pro-anti-regime struggle. The eruption of sectarian tension is relatively recent, and paradoxically this suits the regime. It will encourage minorities to side with Assad and see him as their bulwark against sectarian hatred and annihilation. He didn't experience anything like we're hearing in the West, where al-Qaeda is flooding into Syria and there's a bunch of foreign fighters going around. Personally, I saw nothing like this in my time there. The area I lived in and worked in is populated by fighters who are exclusively local people fighting for their country in their own way. On why the West hasn't intervened in the country the same way we did with Libya, it does seem to me that it is the fear of a proxy war that is stopping Western powers getting involved in any significant way. And on what's best for the rebels obviously want a load of weapons and, more importantly, a no-fly zone. The latter is something that I think would make a real difference in Syria, meaning that he thinks a no-fly zone would help end the conflict sooner. And lastly, who does he think is right in this whole Syrian conflict? I don't think that it's a case of which of these two sides are right. It's more complex than that. The violence meted out by Assad is certainly far, far greater than that which the rebels have or have been able to dish out. But that doesn't mean that the rebels are right. There is no unified rebellion any longer. The fundamental question is how to bring it to an end. Thanks for watching this video. I always think it's extremely crucial to get as many perspectives as possible on important issues of life and death, like what's going on in Syria, especially when we haven't had the presence of journalists and of monitors in the area in the last few months that we probably should have. So people like Olly Lambert, the work they're doing is incredibly important and valuable to the entire international community. You can watch his PBS Frontline piece linked down below, as well as his Salon piece and his Reddit Ask Me Anything.